It's Robert! No!
You okay, lady?
The Ring Terror's Realm may be one of the worst survival horror titles from the heyday of survival horror. But as a result, it has moments where the snake eats its own tail and becomes brilliant in its hilarity and incompetence. A bizarre plot with even more bizarre characters, as if Tommy Wiseau was part of the writing team. In another bizarre choice, Terror's Realm pulls far more from the book series compared to the film franchise. Whereas the films leaned into supernatural horror, the novels were more in line with a mystery thriller. But there is evidence that the game was something else altogether before having the Ring IP bolted on top. We're falling in line with how the book series unfolded made for a better fit. Its clunky movement, combined with tedious exploration and lackluster gameplay, have it playing as one of the lesser RE clones. So, my fellow Boulder Punchers, let's dive on in. Although do be aware of any phone calls that you may receive over the next little while. Few notes before beginning, I will have some brief spoilers for the franchise, more on the book series, but I'll keep that to a minimum. And thanks to the Boulder Punchers who support the channel through Patreon, YouTube memberships, or one-time donations. If you're interested, check the pinned comment or description for links and more info. As well, if you haven't done so, do consider subscribing to the channel. So, this opening cutscene. I'm going to play the whole thing uninterrupted and then bring my thoughts up after. There is much to make note of. Enjoy the delicious cheese. Do note the game has no subtitles for the FMVs, which is unfortunate. Some bits are hard to hear and understand.
Hello?
Meg?
Robert, you get the job?
Yeah, I'll be working with you starting tomorrow, so I guess I'll be seeing you soon.
Really? That's great. So why don't we go out for a celebratory drink?
Okay. I'll get ready.
Promise?
Promise. Bye for now. Well, who the hell does she think she is? She hasn't any idea of how important this project is. But Zanako.
Robert, he didn't sound so pleased, even though it's been quite a while since we spoke. He's absolutely Mr. Thickhead, even on my last birthday. Well, today's the day. He has to make up for it.
You on a tax again, please? 2429, 2429, come in.
What?
2429, 510-5.
Robert?
Yeah, and I think we're just gonna have to do it that way. And that's just a... Hey! Hey, miss. No, I'm sorry, you can't come in here. You're gonna have to get out of here. Or do you live here?
What's happened, officer?
What's happened, officer? No, I'm asking you a question. Do you live here? Hello? Miss?
Watch out.
Robert?
Hello? Hey. Hey, stop, lady.
I can't believe it's Robert! No!
You okay, lady?
Meg! What's going on over there? Like, hey man, what's happening here?
Hold on a moment, sir.
I know the two of them. They're friends. What happened? I don't believe this.
I see.
Oh, Meg.
Could you explain your relationship to either her or the victim?
Yeah, I know the two of them. They're both my friends. I'm Jack, and this is Robert's girlfriend, Meg.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm
What
sorry.
happened to Robert?
Actually, we don't yet exactly know what happened to him this evening.
You don't know? Isn't this a murder?
Okay.
It's unlikely to be a homicide case.
Not a murder? Then what's that? Did you see his face? What's happened? Oh my god!
Well, we'll get to the bottom of this.
That was quite the intro, was it not? So this opening line from Meg, who was our protagonist, asks her boyfriend Robert if he quote-unquote got the job.
Meg?
Robert, get the job?
Yeah, I'll be working with you starting tomorrow, so I guess I'll be seeing you soon.
That's not correct. It's Meg here who's the new hire. According to the manual and in-game dialogue, Robert was responsible for getting Meg hired. Robert is a scientist at the CDC, a Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I guess something must have gotten lost in translation with the script for this oversight to occur. This will be the first of many odd things lost in translation. Oh, and the shot of his right hand shifting is a riot. Hope he's not right-handed, though the odds aren't in his favor. And that voice acting. You know how early day survival horror voice acting can be, but The Ring, this has to be some of the finest of cheese. Like when the cop asks Meg, "You okay, lady?" after she faints. The way he asks her is like how you'd ask someone who may need a hand getting the door. And then you have these two talking over each other, which you can do if you have the actors in the same room. But it's clear here they stitched these together and, well, this is the end result. Like they did one take, shrugged their shoulders, and moved on. For more context on the guy who runs over who knows Meg and Robert.
Like, hey man, what's happening here?
This is Jack. He is the ex-boyfriend of Meg and a journalist, which unless you read the manual, I don't recall the game mentioning. Let's continue on with the rest of this cutscene.
I'm still alive. I'll work for this company without you, Robert. I shouldn't mourn your death forever. Right.
So, how much time passed between Robert's death and Meg starting work at the CDC? Meg does say she shouldn't mourn his death forever. Have weeks passed? Nope, this is the morning after. According to the manual, Robert died suddenly on the same day as she started work. Now, I know we all grieve in different ways. Some people like to throw themselves into their work. But Meg, I do believe your employer will give you some leeway here. Did you have a quick cry, sleep it off, and move on? The game emphasized an urgency to figuring out what happened to Robert, or Meg needed to get to the bottom of things right away? Okay, some justification in that, but there's nothing here to suggest that. You think Robert had a case of the sniffles or something with how Meg reacts. And that's hammered home with that unchanging smile of hers always on display. Again, I know we all handle adversity and grief in different ways, but Meg here, is she bottling something up at the moment? I'd keep a close eye on her if I was working at CDC. Now, enjoy this voice acting while you can, because beyond a few other cutscenes, that's all we get. It's all text from here on in. Meg starts working in Robert's old lab. We get a phone call from Jack. That's the man who ran over to the murder scene in the prior cutscene. Jack mentions that 2 other staff at CDC died in the same way and time as Robert did, in front of their computers. They were running a program known as Ring on their computers. The police weren't able to boot the program or computer, and Jack suggests that we don't try it either. So what does Meg do? Why, what anyone would do. Try to boot up the laptop and this Ring program. And unlike the cops, it does boot up for her. Meg emerges in the darkened, derelict world in the fancy combat getup. She'll come across a brigade member who provides the game's tutorial. He'll tell us to head upstairs and deal with them being this monkey-like creature. Returning to the brigade leader, Meg feels ill and faints, making that count number 2 on the faint counter for Meg.
You okay, lady?
She wakens back in her office, slumped over in her chair. There's another phone call that Meg answers. The lights in the room flicker out, and we receive a message over the phone and one on the laptop screen. You know it, 7 days. Well, it's weird that this happens as opposed to the videotape, but hold that thought for now. Meg, being Meg, takes this all in stride, thinking, it's just a prank, bro. Leaving her office, a woman named Chris will come to find us and take us to talk to the chief of the CDC, John Brad. John tells us that the executives have put an evacuation order for the city. At the CDC, we are prohibited from leaving. Anyone who didn't come in before 9 a.m. weren't able to get in. That's why there's so few staff around. Quite the first day Meg is having here. They're checking for a virus leakage in the basement, so for the moment we only have access to the second floor. And now, the ring, Terra's Realm, begins proper. This is how the flow of Terra's Realm will play out. You'll have a stretch navigating around the CDC, talking with others, collecting notes, at which point we'll return to the virtual world to fight enemies and explore. On the note of exploration, for controls, Terra's Realm handles in a sluggish manner. Now, tank controls have a built-in awkwardness to them to add to the tension, but it's the case for most of them. After playing for some time, you get used to it. I never quite had a handle on Terra's Realm tank controls. I can't recall a game that had worse tank controls than what's here. If you've played Terra's Realm and have played a game with worse tank controls, do leave a comment below. A bit hard to describe, but you can sure feel it when you play. Sometimes the simple task of lining yourself up to pick an item off the ground or open a door can be an awkward affair. If you hold the run button while moving backward, Meg will do this hilarious backstep leap that always gave me a chuckle. Oh, that music track that was playing there? Do not worry, we'll get to that soon enough. Terra's Realm does give you the option of changing your camera perspective. One button allows you to look around in first person. The standard perspective is fixed camera, but if you want, you do have some options. You can change it to an over-the-shoulder perspective, although further back than what you see in modern titles using the perspective, or a perspective that changes to fixed when using a melee weapon else it remains over the shoulder, or you can also play the game in the first-person viewpoint. Thing is, there isn't a button press to change between these perspectives. The early survival horror title Overblood allowed you to switch in game between fixed, behind the player, or first person. Here, you need to do it in the main menu under options. You can't do so from the menu while in game, which is a bit bizarre. Then again, there's not much reason to change beyond fixed camera, but I do appreciate that they gave players the option, but it'd be nicer if they gave you an easier way to do so. I have to also note the transition between areas. It's like how the classic Resident Evil titles did room transitions, but it doesn't fade into the other room. It's all seamless, although at times how long this transition is can vary. Sometimes it's a quick process, other time the game takes longer to load. There's a small cast of characters beyond the Chief and Chris that we'll come across within the CDC, like Peter, the research scientist who works next door to our office, or Timothy, who looks to have seen many years. Then we have Kathy here rocking the Tina Turner look. Then we have Lucino, the security guard. I like to think the developers took inspiration from Dennis Rodman here with all his piercings. And these conversations between Meg and Lucino are, well, Kino and how bizarre and fascinating they can be. Meg likes to explore on her whim, which drives Lucino up the wall as security. We'll also get to hear their inner thoughts in the text boxes during their chats. And as mentioned earlier, beyond the cutscenes, there is no voice dialogue in Terra's Realm. After that intro, we won't be seeing any until the end stretch of the game. Which is too bad. There's so many awkward, bizarre conversations that stilted voice acting could have added so much to. You know how the early days of survival horror could be, how much charm you can derive as a result of the voice acting.
Whoa! What is it?
What? Oh! Oh no! Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
You must be from the Bravo team.
It's unfortunate that Terra's Realm is so sparse in its offerings. That said, there is far more dialogue here than you'd find in similar titles. Some of these conversations would be better off in an RPG. There are many conversations that are redundant in their nature. They tend to have a similar flow. A person Meg talks to will bring something up. Confused, she'll ask some questions, at which point the same point may emerge 2 to 3 times with only a few changes in wording. If it's not very clear after that intro cutscene, Meg isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. These can be on full display in these conversations. And plenty of awkward, stilted lines, which we'll get to later. A case of where I'm not sure if the translation team was out to lunch, or they did one that was on the nose, more literal translation, and you end up with several bizarre exchanges. Whatever it is, it sure is fascinating and like a train wreck you can't look away from. But it's too bad that it gets caught up in redundant conversations and a lack of voice acting, because there's much within these conversations that should have made its way into the gaming pantheon. With voice acting to go with it, I'm sure they would have. Instead, the game remains in relative obscurity compared to some of its contemporaries. Like some of these lines get into Tommy Wiseau bizarre territory, if only they had the voice acting to go with them.
Leave your stupid comments in your pocket.
But Terra's Realm does make up for it, to an extent, when it comes to some of its other bizarre elements on the sound front. Like when you boot up the game or when you save a game file. Before I play the sound, dear viewer, I want you to think about a sound effect you'd hear in the survival horror menu for confirming a selection. Do you have one in mind? Great. Now, how in line was it with what the Ring has here? Were you expecting a gooey splat stock sound effect? For whatever reason, that's what the Ring makes use of. Look, if you had a goo gun or something, I get it. In fact, I think this is the same stock sound that made an appearance in the 1998 Sega Saturn survival horror title, Deep Fear. If you want something comical, sure, but here it's so out of place. Like they had as a placeholder for laugh and forgot to change it. It's not the only place where it shows up, but hold that thought for now. Let's talk about the music. Well, for now, one track in particular. One that plays while we wander around the CDC lab's upper floors for the first stretch of the game. No, it doesn't play during a short 1-minute stretch. Something you hear once in the game and it's gone. It loops over and over and over again. Again, like the splat sound effect, it's like they had a placeholder track for laugh and forgot to change it. There'd be times where it'd fade out during the CDC stretches and I think to myself, now that's done, before returning with a vengeance. I'm hard-pressed to find a more annoying track I've come across in the game. You can make use of annoying tracks in short stretches to evoke certain feelings in the player. Tension, for example. But it's like someone forgot to change the track here for something else, and this is what we get. Terra's Realm in the form of this looping track. Then something odd began to happen. This track became ingrained in my mind, like a weird case of Stockholm Syndrome. And I'd find myself humming it at random points throughout my day. It's probably even more annoying than the track itself. As a result, for these earlier stretches, I played with my volume no louder than a peep. I did all I could to maintain my sanity and reduce the damage this song can cause. Probably more so than that damn cursed tape. It's unfortunate that Terra's Realm only had a release on the Dreamcast, no PC version. I like to think that someone out there would mod the game to play a different track in its place. A mod that would no doubt be the most popular mod for the game. Thing is, there's plenty of other decent to great tracks here. Memorable in a more conventional sense, although hold that thought for now. It's these stretches in this virtual world where Terra's Realm is more in the vein of a traditional survival horror. The game makes use of a limited inventory, something I always love to see. It's harder to bounce a game around, but it can add so much to the experience. The classic Resident Evil titles, especially Resident Evil Remake, are the gold standards for this. Terra's Realm, it doesn't add much to the experience. You don't have to give much thought until the game's end stretch, at which point you can stock up on weapons that take up more space. But you could always throw them in an item box or delete an item at any point to free up room, and the game never shies away from providing you with plenty of ammo, as long as you explore. It's not like enemies take much to go down. It's not like you need to unload a full pistol clip to take out most enemies. What are these enemies? They're a mishmash of bizarre assortments of monkeys and human-like creatures. What are they doing in this virtual world? Once again, hold that thought for now, that will come up later. For the most part, if you keep your distance, they're easy to deal with. Even with the game's unwieldy tank controls, you can run around them without much of a sweat. It's not like Resident Evil where you have to juke out zombies in narrow hallways. But if they do hit you, it's easy to fall into a stun lock where they hit you over and over. Although Meg can take a fair amount of damage. And no, I didn't add in that splat effect to those enemy attacks. That's what the game uses. Like they had a disgruntled employee who changed them last minute and no one caught on to the fact. Can't think of another reason they would use it otherwise. Quality control is not this game's strong point. For damage, I have to note the odd choice of your health status. There's 5 stages to it. Fine is the best, followed by better? Shouldn't that be, well, better than fine? Then normal, bad, and danger. If they got rid of better, that would make more sense. But like so many things within Terra's Realm, it's an odd duck of a design decision. Where the controls do handle fine is shooting an enemy. You can aim at different body parts. Shooting an enemy in the leg will slow them down. Granted, most enemies are slow and easy to avoid. It's not like you're lacking in ammo. At that point, you're better off just killing them, as most enemies take only a few shots to kill. There's a flashlight mechanic within Terra's realm that's a good idea, but lacks on the execution. You could turn off the light to avoid drawing attention to yourself from enemies. But as mentioned, it's not like enemies are hard to evade. Your flashlight has a limited battery, but that battery is generous in its length. Although at points it would run out in dialogue exchanges. Strange that the game didn't pause that there. And like ammo, as long as you explore, there's never a shortage of batteries you can find for your flashlight. It's nice they made some attempt to limited resources, but they didn't bounce in a way that offers much challenge to the player. Walking around these stretches, you may think to yourself early on, you know what? This looks a lot like the CDC. Well, it becomes clear in short order that, yes, this is the CDC. Well, a derelict one with poor lighting. You'll start off in a different area in the basement. It's not until later that you have access to these areas in the real world. An issue that rises here is how the world blends into one another. I mean, it's a lab, not an eccentric police station or mansion, but it's easy to get lost of which room is what, and with all these shifting camera angles, it can be easy to turn yourself around. There's a map, but I didn't find much use of it. Besides, it takes some time to pull up. There's no button that brings up as a shortcut, you have to go to your inventory first, which takes longer than I'm used to. Not a snappy process to say the least, to the point where I tried to avoid going to the inventory menu due to how slow it was to bring it up. These stretches in the virtual world can be aimless at times. Sometimes it will return to it in a later stretch where a previous door is now unlocked, and there's no real indication of it. You have to wander around to find that out for yourself. It can be quite the annoying ordeal. But at least the music here is different, no more grating, looping track. What we have here is not what I call a great track, but anything is going to sound great in comparison to what came before there. With that, let's continue with the story. One file we could come across makes mention of a strange 8mm film. A rumor has gone around that a security guard died because he watched it. Robert, Meg's dead boyfriend, watched the film with a group, receiving great enjoyment from it. When the staff mentioned they received a prank call afterward, yeah, you know where this is going. Even if you've never seen the film or read the books, this idea of the tape killing you is so ingrained into horror culture. Jack, the hey man from the game's intro, gives Meg a call. Seems that the cops handed over Robert's body to the CDC to investigate. Meg heads back to John Brad, the CDC chief, to inquire about Robert's body. The chief tells us to pay no mind to it. There's others within CDC more qualified to deal with it. Then Meg brings up the ring program, at which point John lets his emotions get the better of him. He turns into a JRPG character here with all these animations. Now into overdrive, it's clear that John here knows more than he's letting on. He's hiding something. If he was trying to throw Meg off or the player off the case, then mission failed. He tells us to cool our head in our lab and can clearly say that you are not sane. Meg, being Meg with that unending smile, takes it in stride and apologizes. Imagine your boss yelling like this to you on your first day. Can clearly say that you are not sane. Quite the way to begin the job. As much of a hoot that this scene is, I can only wonder what it would have been like if there was voice acting. Again, too bad we won't be hearing any until the game's end stretch. Asking Timothy for help, he tells Meg that Robert had an obsession with the reference room. We should check his locker in the men's locker room to see if we could find the key for it. Which Lucchino tries to put a stop to, but Timothy here offers a helping hand. There is, as the game puts it, a very important file in the reference room, one talking about the phenomenon known as Ring in late 1990, the curse of Sadako Yamamura, aka the Ring Girl. Anyone who saw the video she created died within 1 week of a heart attack unless they created a duplicate. After a time, the cursed video turned into a literal virus. Sadako, born in 1951, was alive for 30 years after falling into a well. Alright, so let's now talk about the Ring franchise at large. At the release of Terra's Realm in 2000, there were 4 books in the series by author Koji Suzuki. Ring from 1991, its sequel Spiral in 1995, and the sequel Loop in 1998. 1999's Birthday was a collection of 3 short stories. Ring was a smash hit and led to films. On the film front, there was a Japanese TV film from 1995. One that, compared to the theatrical release, was faithful to the novel. Early 1998 would see the release of Ring, or Ringu, the theatrical release. At the time, it was the highest grossing Japanese horror film. This would serve as the basis for the 2002 Western remake of The Ring with Naomi Watts. It's the 1998 theatrical film that takes a noticeable departure from the books. To be clear, I haven't read the books, but know the major beats of what goes on, read the plot synopsis. If you have read the books, I'm curious to hear about your experiences with them in the comments below. There are some shifts to its protagonist, but I want to focus on Sadako Yamamura, aka the Ring Girl. In the books, when the 7 days pass, victims die from a heart attack. Compare that to the film, where Sadako emerges from a TV to kill her victim. One of the most iconic moments in the series never existed in the books. On the book's tone, they were less horror and make more of a sci-fi, mythical, mystery, thriller tone. Sadako's powers are far greater in the film with what she can do. In the note we find in the reference room, there's 2 things to note. Sadako has a large chance of having smallpox. Her psychic powers combine with smallpox to create the ring virus, one that was once a tape but now a natural virus. And Sadako had female testicular syndrome, where she had external female genitalia but has male internal sex organs. These elements are not present in the film. Both these points come from the novels. It was fascinating to dive into this world of the books and the film differences. I didn't realize how much they deviate from one another, especially as this series went on. The second book in the series, Spiral, it would get a film release. It came out the same day as Ring in January 1998. Can't think of another series that did that. Released the sequel film on the same day? The movie shared the same cast and production, but different directors and writers. And unlike Ring, it was more faithful to its novel. A novel that gets quite out there, going in a far different direction than what you would think. Gets a bit meta at times, where Sadako's curse moves away from the videotape into other means. Spiral did nowhere near the box office or critical acclaim of Ring, and became a bit of a forgotten film. Ring 2 came out in 1999 and ignores the events of Spiral and continues in the vein of the first film. A story not based off authors Koji Suzuki's works. For whatever reason, Terra's Realm pulls more from the novels as opposed to the films. You think going with a survival horror approach, they go more in line with the films. It's not like they don't pull anything from the movies, some in a literal sense, but as the game folds, you can see how much it pulls from the third novel from the series, Loop. And even more so later, this game might have been something else altogether before it became part of the Ring franchise. But let's continue with the story for now. Returning to our office, Meg will use the laptop to re-enter the Ring program. This time, there's no one around by her entrance point. When we wrap the stretch up, we'll have a shot of someone watching Meg, but disappears before she can investigate. The chief will call us to his office for a chat. I guess now we've had some time to cool our head, and probably him as well. He demands to know why we are snooping around in the reference room. And here I will give Meg credit in her quick thinking. She's not the sharpest tool in the shed. For some conversations with how she talks, I wondered if she was feigning ignorance. But no, she tends to be clueless more often than not. Again, she's likely not in the best state of mind with Robert passing away, but then again, look to how she got over it the next morning.
I'll work for this company without you, Robert. I shouldn't mourn your death forever. Right.
Here it's a case of a broken clock being right twice a day. She pulls off something so straightforward, so simple, so blunt. Meg realizes that being honest with the chief will result in her losing that key. So what does she say? She said the door to the reference room was already unlocked. She didn't know it was off limits, and like that, the chief accepts it, hook, line, sinker. Hats off to you, Meg, for such a play. It's like bluffing in Texas Hold'em with a 2-7 offsuit. Speaking of poker, how would Meg do at poker? With that unwavering smile of hers, how much would she throw off her opponents? Now I can imagine her causing Phil Hellmuth to storm off as she sits there with that unwavering smile. As Meg leaves the chief's office, she's struck by a wave of dizziness and, wait for it, once again faints. Add one more to Meg's faint count, now sitting at 3.
You okay, lady?
She wakens in the medical room and continues on as normal. Was there a point to this scene? If there was, it's eluding me. I did bring up earlier that Terra's Realm reminds me of Tommy Wiseau's The Room at points. This is one of those moments. Scenes with literally no point to them. And right after that, get ready to add another tally to Meg's faint counter, bringing us up to 4. Returning to her office, the lights flicker and go out. Meg can't determine who is in the office, but we as the player can. It's Peter, the scientist who works one room over. He bumps into Meg as he escapes, leaving a key behind giving us further access to the building. If you go and confront Peter about it, he denies being in there. He suggests it was Lucchino, the security guard. With this keycard Peter dropped, we can now access the first floor as we head down with Kathy. And, at long last, we have a music change. And not a moment too soon. Sure, the music changed for the virtual world stretches, but now the real world at long last has music that won't drive you up the wall. It felt like stepping into the sunlight after not seeing the sun for some time. The track here reminds me some of the more down-tempo tracks in Silent Hill games. More on the down-tempo, chill nature itself, less on the instrumentation and the quality. Well, there's this one track here that's only for the lobby. If we continue further into the CDC, we get another track, which is in a similar vein, more of a down-tempo, chill track. If either one of these tracks played instead of that jarring one all that time, my feelings on the game would be so much better. While exploring the first floor of the CDC, Chris will tell us that there's a phone call for us. No name given, but it was a woman's voice. We head to one of the offices to take the call, at which point there will be a laptop waiting to take us back to the virtual world. Now before we head back in, one thought did pop to mind here. I'm guessing this woman would have been Sadako Yamamura calling us. But it's really funny to think that she was put on hold, waiting for Meg to pick up. Could you imagine someone like her having to wait in such a way? Oh, sorry there. Meg isn't available. I'll go find her. Funny enough, I couldn't find any fan art of Sadako making a phone call. You'd think there'd be something out there, but no. But I did find something even better. Here she is throwing a pitch at Kayako from the Ju-on series, known as The Grudge in the West. This was to promote the 2016 film Sadako vs. Kayako. Yes, Japan had their own equivalent of Freddy vs. Jason. If you have seen Sadako vs. Kayako, do let me know how it was in the comments. Heading back to the virtual world, we'll come across one of the brigade members, who informs us that the gas spray will commence in 15 minutes. A plan of the brigade to get rid of these creatures backfired, and now we're on the clock to get the power back on to shut that gas off. The code to the generator is 1951, which as we discovered in notes, is the birth year of Sadako. I haven't mentioned it until now, but there's no real puzzles in Terra's Realm. You know, a staple of survival horror? Sure, the game's bizarre plot, especially in the end stretch, is one giant puzzle of trying to figure out what the writers were going for, but no real in-game puzzles. Which would do well in this kind of setting, trying to unravel the mystery of this virtual world, of Sadako, of Robert's death. Meg would play detective and solve puzzles to piece things together. Would make for a great point-and-click horror game, but alas, that's not the case. With the timer running, we have to find one of these giant monkeys that's holding the key to the power generator. And here's another instance of Terra's Realm where the game gives us next to no guidance. Well, we do have 15 minutes, but going from room to room to find a giant monkey to kill isn't the most fun. It's not like there's only one giant monkey here. The one with the key is not even on this floor. You have to head downstairs back to the basement to find him. I'm not saying that the game needed to name the room of where to find him, but at least give us some kind of direction, please. Getting the power up and running, we'll see a girl watching us, but vanishes without a trace. It won't be long until we see her again, this time in the real world back at the CDC. This occurs during a conversation with Kathy and Chris, who tell us about locked up patients in the basement. Those infected by the virus ended up down there. Robert did some digging around, which gets Meg's attention and gives us a goal for our next objective. Heading down to the basement, we'll have a new annoying music track to deal with. Oh, and the game was doing so well there on the music front. Now we get this loud, jarring stab, only to repeat a good 20 seconds later. But the music track here shifts on the regular. You return to the hall and we have ambient sounds of it. Open the door to a room and there's that track, smacking you right in the face. It's annoying in a different way from the track we heard earlier in the CDC. We'll find some patients down here to have a chat with. One that's the same character model as Dr. Timothy from earlier with different clothes. And no, as far as I know, this isn't Dr. Timothy, who I should now mention vanished without a trace, unless I missed him hanging around some other room. Some more great lines here. As you can see, I'm more than bored. Again, I'm not sure what happened with the translation. The translation team was out to lunch, or they did a more literal translation that resulted in bizarre lines such as this. One infected patient warns us about the chief, that his eyes are not normal. Another mentions that she wants to talk to Robert, unaware of his death. Meg will overhear a conversation between the chief and Peter. Some more bizarre lines here, like, you can't make fun of magic in Asia. The magic he's referring to here is the Curse of Sadako. Seems like they're close to harnessing her powers of the virus. This gives Meg the chance to explore the Chief's office, where we can find a key in his desk drawer to use in the reference room. The key will unlock a drawer containing the 8mm film, yes, that film. With that intelligence of hers once again on full display, Meg searches for a projector to watch it, despite knowing what she's getting into. And you get to see that big brain of hers once again in action when returning to her office. Jack gives us a call and lets us know that Sadako's body is at the CDC, which we already know about from the note we found earlier in the reference room. But this is news to Meg. I guess all those jumps back and forth between the virtual and real world are doing some numbers on her cognitive abilities. But Lucchino stops by to inform us that they, quote-unquote, need to hold you down for a while. Strange way of putting it, Lucchino. Is she smart? Is she loyal? Is she grateful? I don't think the CDC appreciates her. They're not going to be giving her money anytime soon to buy Meg's mom a house. The CDC may be suffering, but they're not suffering from success. Didn't expect to hear DJ Khaled references in this video, did you? Neither did I, but that's Tara's realm for you. I may be losing more brain cells than Meg at this point. Lucchino tells Meg to go with him, so what does Meg do? Why, she runs away. Despite being tiny in comparison to Lucchino and wearing heels, this works. This takes Lucchino by surprise. He just stands around like an idiot. Meg goes to ask Chris of where she can watch the film. There's an audio-visual room right by her office, but that's locked. Chris doesn't know where the key is, but wait, what's that spinning there in the background? Is that the key? Why, yes it is. Reminded me of that breakfast scene in Deadly Premonition with the spinning item in the background. You know, this game at times comes close to the bizarre brilliance of Deadly Premonition, but beyond a few brief glimpses, never quite reaches it. There's a reason this game has been forgotten at large compared to Deadly Premonition. With the key in hand, we head to the audio-visual room. We fire up the projector, and what we watch is the cursed tape lifted straight from the 1998 film. Which I'd show here, but with its length, I'm a bit skittish about it getting copyright claims, so I'll use still images. I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't, look it up on YouTube. It's more low-key than the 2002 Western remake. One that I found tries a bit too hard to unnerve you. The 1998 version, far superior. The shot of people walking and crawling, some forward, some backward in a natural way. The Towel Man, the shot of the well. It's a classic scene from the horror pantheon. I will note that the film's version of the cursed tape deviates from the version in the book. The Japanese TV film from 1995 is in line with the book's version. Again, you could find this on YouTube if you look it up. Quite unsettling in a different way. But here's the thing. As much as I love this cursed tape, it's an utter clash with the game's tone. Like it's coming from a different universe. I have to wonder if they ever thought about making an FMV of their take on the tape, or something in line with the game, something more in line with the game's tone. But now I'm imagining something here that makes me laugh more than the parody of the tape from Scary Movie 3. And not in an intentional way. But there's no phone call for Meg. Although that girl once again appears behind her. And she warps back to the virtual world, although this time no fainting or laptop. One of the brigade members here orders us to go assemble the grenade launcher to fend off the creatures. And hey, at least he tells us here where to find the parts for it, which is a nice change of pace during these virtual sections. We actually have direction of where we need to go. Clearing out the monsters with the grenade launcher, he tells us to check back upstairs with the rest of the team, and we run into Jack? Like Hey Man Jack from the intro? The one calling us up on the regular? What in the world is he doing here?
Like, hey man, what's happening here?
Before we could get a concrete answer, Meg, you guessed it, faints once again, making her a five-time fainting champion at this point. I can't recall a game where a character faints as much as Meg. Do leave a comment below if you know of any games with characters that faint more than her. None popped to mind here. She wakens in the lab with Peter and the Chief present. They're testing everyone in the CDC to see if they have the virus. Which I guess she should have, seeing as she watched the film. The Chief has one of the funnier lines here. And you call yourself a research scientist. The Chief orders for Meg to return to her office and wait for the lab results. Lucchino will enter her office and apologize. He's only been following orders and has kept a close eye on us the whole time because of his suspicions of the Chief. Lucchino was good friends with Robert, and he too wants to get to the bottom of what's going on here. To help us out, he's going to cut the power to the lab. This will give us a few minutes to get to the basement and access the locked off area in the back. There is something back there that Robert kept talking about, and maybe the answers we seek. We'll do this at night in a few hours' time. Jack sends us a fax. He'll tell us to seek out Sadako's body and see if we could create a vaccine to deal with the virus. With time to kill, what does Meg do? Take a nap? Chill out? Faint once again? No, she decides to head back into the virtual world to pass the time. Now, to be fair, there may be more within to find the answers she seeks. And find them, she does. Buckle up, my friends. Things are about to get wild. As we make our way around, we'll come across the girl we've seen earlier in both the virtual and the real world. Meg pursues her but ends up in a room with a brigade member who is none the wiser about this girl's appearance. He talks to Meg about if she found the vaccine. He reminds her that her mission was to enter the Loop program, contact Sadako, and obtain the vaccine. To enter the Loop world, we used a converter program called Ring. In the process, Meg's memories became jumbled due to the interference from Sadako. The Loop world is the past memories of Sadako. So this derelict world, the one Meg thought was the virtual world, turns out this is the real world. Those monsters we come across, they're mutated humans due to Sadako's powers. The other world that we thought was the real world, that's the virtual world, the Loop program built from Sadako's memories. The message we received after our first run-through on the laptop about the 7 days, that was not from Sadako. That was from our team, telling us we would die in 7 days unless we find the vaccine. It was a red herring. Are you keeping up here? Never in my wildest dreams did I expect for a story to go this way when I booted up Terrace Realm. Now, to be fair, it's not like this is unfamiliar territory for the series, at least on the book front. The third book in the Ring series is called Loop, and deals with a simulated reality. I won't spoil it here in case you have a morbid curiosity, but looking at the plot synopsis, it's jarring if your only familiarity with the series came through the films. At long last, we'll come across that girl we've been seeing, but this is not Sadako, but Sadako's mother, Shizuko. Why does she appear as a child? She reincarnated herself to try and protect Sadako, and this is how she ended up. Well, I guess that works in a way to throw off the player, a bit of a red herring. I thought it was Sadako the entire time despite her appearance. And there's another element where the book and films deviate. That iconic look of Sadako from the films, that appearance was a film creation, not from the books. Why they didn't go for that appearance instead, I have no idea why. Shizuko is able to communicate with us better in the real world. In the Loop world, Sadako interferes. And she tells us that in the real world, Robert's alive. 2 days remain before Sadako's virus covers the entire world. Hence why we need this vaccine ASAP. Did you get all that? It took me a few read-throughs looking back at the footage to try to piece this together. It's getting into Metal Gear Solid 2 territory, and well over a year before MGS2 did something similar. Well, to an extent. In Sons of Liberty, there was at least some method to the madness, and even that's debatable.
I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey rock. I need scissors. 61.
But for Terra's Realm, I wish I could say the same. If they had more time, it's possible they could have scrapped something together that gets into meta territory that can be profound at times. But it never comes close to that. Instead of the bizarre, the silly, and one big shoulder shrug. So now we return to the quote-unquote real world, or as we now know it, the Loop world. We have 3 minutes to get to the basement now that Lucchino has cut the power. I wonder if the game is going to use a new track here for the final stretch of unexplored territory. Well, I guess wrong. Guess which track returns to rear its ugly head? If they use it to show Meg's reality collapsing in of itself, then mission accomplished. Again, part of me still feels that some disgruntled staff member decided to play this song as much as possible. A track that was only supposed to play for one short stretch found its way into a good stretch of the game's runtime. Throughout our time in the basement, we'll run into Shizuko. She lets us know about a secret elevator in the chief's office. And at long last, we finally get another FMV with a glorious return of voice acting. Well, there was an optional one earlier with finding Sadako's brain after talking with her mother, but my footage for it was corrupt. Besides, it uses a heavy amount of footage from the film. There's not much to note about the cutscene. But this one in the basement of the chief's lab, there's much to note about. It's an absolute riot with its voice acting and its dialogue. It's another one of those moments where I wish the game had voice acting the entire run through. And also subtitles, as it can be a bit muddy at times to understand what's being said.
Indeed. I don't know why you and Robert want to have it your own way.
Chief?
Just another effort. One more step and the work is over. I'll be the one who controls the virus.
Virus, what? What are you talking about, Chief?
Really, Meg? How many times have you talked to the Chief or others about the virus? I don't think you could put the blame on the reality switching anymore for mucking with your memory.
It's not too bad, even as a prototype. The force of Sadako Yamamura. The force of the curse. Who'd ever imagine how powerful the force of the curse is?
The force of Sadako Yamamura? The force of the curse? Robert! Oh no! Was it you?
Robert? Yeah, he wanted to know about the virus, so I did him a favor. I gave him that virus to satisfy his curiosity.
You gave the virus to him? That was what turned him into such a monster? And that's what caused his death? All because of the virus?
Well, don't worry. You'll be with Robert very soon. In 24 hours, you'll be totally overtaken by the test virus. Before you die, you may help me to prove that I've got Sadako's force under my control.
You bastard! Then all of the patients carried in here have been...
For our species' sake, for humanity, Sadako's curse will sweep all over the world, transforming it. So why not improve yourself with the virus? The virus promotes us, allows us beings to evolve further.
It's not for humanity at all. What you've done is not for us, but only for yourself. You just want control of Sadako's power.
Maybe you're right, but it doesn't matter anymore. If only I can use this power. Look, this is it, and I'm the only one who rules this force!
What's happening?
No, you can't. You'll never be the one who control this force. Never, ever.
And so begins our showdown with a transformed Chief, courtesy of Sadako. He takes many bullets to go down, but he does have one main weakness: his inability to navigate around static objects for long periods of time. Although dig the energy to this music track. And in the back room, at long last, we'll come across the body of Sadako, which again, I'm not sure why they didn't go with her well-known appearance from the films. Turns out she's not dead, and instead no clips and floats off to the rooftop for the CDC to see the sky. And this fight on the rooftop against her will serve as the game's climax. And it's ho-hum to say the least. Granted, survival horror titles have never had the greatest of boss fights, but considering what Sadako's capable of, you'd think she'd go for something more powerful than whipping her hair around or dispersing into a murderous crow at points. Then again, we need to have some sort of fighting chance against her. With Meg the victor, we have one final cutscene, voice acting returning to wrap things up.
Do you think we, human beings, deserve to survive after this?
To me, to us, the answer is no. That's the vaccine. Save the world, save humanity. They don't care about anything other than themselves.
Don't you see? I care.
Sounds like the truth. I'm going, but the next will come, one after another. Make every fight to kill each other until everybody's gone.
The vaccine announced to cure the disease has been put into full mass production. However, some citizens desperate for the vaccine are not waiting for their ration and have started rioting. A large number of fatalities and injured due to such riots have been reported all over the country. Killing until everybody's gone.
And so concludes Terra's Realm, ending with a bit of a sequel hook that would never come. Boy, do I have many questions here. What happened to Robert? Did he survive? Did he get the vaccine in time? What about Jack? What happened to him after we saw him in the real world? As Meg watched the cursed tape, is she bound to die? Or because that was in the virtual world and Sadako's memories, is she okay? Or was that final Sadako appearance at the end her coming to kill Meg? How much time has passed between the real world and the loop world? What happened to those in the loop world that we came across at the CDC? The more you think about the virtual world, the loop, the less it makes sense. It's as if they had a different idea for a game altogether and had to bolt on the Ring franchise over it. Which, well, is a theory that I've seen tossed around. There is a long article on the website Bad Game Hall of Fame about Terra's Realm. One that's been very handy for getting up to speed on the novels, the production of the films, and the game itself. Check the pinned comment or description for a link if you're interested. The article proposes a theory that the game's developer, Tycoon, was working on an original survival horror idea, one with elements of sci-fi. At some point, some of the higher-ups might have looked at it and said, you know what, let's put the Ring IP over it. And the evidence for it? This comes from a collection of unused assets. One of the subcontractors for the game had a portfolio of designs on their website labeled as Ring, which looks to be some kind of headquarters with a sci-fi tinge. It's mentioned that it was not used due to quote-unquote scenario change. Could this mean a full revamp from something else beforehand? Well, that's possible. Unused character models include characters like Robert, Kathy, and the Chief as brigade members, along with civilian or loop world models of Jack and Robert that never made their way into the final game. And there's never been any true confirmation on this. The article from Bad Game Hall of Fame puts together a potential theory. The original game was some kind of post-apocalypse setting as a special forces team deal with these humans turning into creatures. Along with Meg, Robert may have been a choosable character. With those unused designs and locations, time travel may have been part of the story. Again, all speculation, but it's a pretty compelling theory. This is more or less a Cole's notes of it. The article goes into far greater details. Things might have fallen into place to a degree with how they can make use of story elements from Loop, where the book series moved into the realm of virtual reality. But it's just a theory. A game theory. Whatever the case, it doesn't change the fact that Terra's Realm is one of the worst survival horror titles from its golden age. It does have moments where it becomes brilliant in its hilarity and incompetence. A case of a snake eating its own tail, as if Tommy Wiseau had a part in writing its story and characters, but as brought up, it might have been a case of a story Frankenstein together from something else beforehand, where the Ring IP was bolted on. As a result, with what they had, they tied in more with the book series compared to the films. It's too bad those snake tail eating moments are only scattered about, where voice acting throughout could have added so much more to the cheese, or it became one of those games you had to seek out to see for yourself. Instead, I hope this video was enough for you. If you do have a morbid curiosity, you can seek it out for yourself, but it should be clear by now the tedium and frustrations you have to go through to get there. It's all downhill after that first opening cutscene. Thanks for watching.
No, I can't believe it's Robert! No!
You okay, lady?
Leave a like and your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Special shout out to the Boulder Punchers who give extra support to the channel on Patreon or YouTube memberships. For those in Complete, Global, Saturation tier, Flan Nagel. For those in the Thank You for Your Patronage tier, American Boot. The Original Narcisse Diet Thick Dew TM Neo Edition, Tom Terrible. For those in the Now This Is Boulder Punching tier, Ethan, the Madman in Waco. For those in the Jill Sandwich tier, Angel, Benji, BBFM Bloxburg, Darkrod99, Extraordinary 2, Happy Tunes, Logie Lepin, Mad Morpheus Gaming, Michael Walters, Nico Pero, Sam Jones, Squid Vicious, Will Han, Zin. For those who have made one-time donations over $5 on Ko-fi or Super Thanks since my last video, Anna and Uncooked2651. And now for the post-video Q&A. Those in the Jill Sandwich tier and above can ask questions, starting with Flan Nagel. Why do you think Japanese horror is so distinct from American horror? Is it because the human experience and priorities, the day-to-day, are so different between the two cultures? I'd say that's part of it. I think it's more where they pull from their histories. For the Japanese, how much they pull from their own folklore and stories, ghost stories that stretch back hundreds of years. And how some of those core concepts, ideas, are still a large influence on their modern horror. For American horror, Western horror, it'd be more where they pull from the wider subset from Europe and elsewhere over the course of many years. So a big part culture, but also history is also tied with that too. So yeah, thanks for the question, Flan. Next question, the original Narcisse Diet Thick Dew TM Neo Edition. It's quite the name. What's your favorite nonfiction book? I do enjoy the Story of Civilization history series by Will Durant. They're written in such a way that you could pick it up, flip through it, read about something. He had quite the way with words. A History of Private Life, a book series of history, is somewhat in the same vein, more about people live day to day. I really like those ones as well. What else? I do like the works of Nassim Taleb, so Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, Skin in the Game. It's been many years since I've read it, but I remember flying through All the President's Men, which is about Watergate. And those are the ones that pop to mind. So thanks for the question, the original Narcisse Diet, Thick Dew TM, Neo Edition. Nico Pero, what do you think caused the failure of the Dreamcast? If you feel there was multiple significant factors, rank them from most to least important. I only ever had Sony consoles in the house growing up, so I never got to experience it, but I see some people speak back of it fondly. So thanks for the question, Nico. I did play Dreamcast as a kid in those stores, like at the kiosks, especially Sonic Adventure. That's pretty much it. None of my friends, I can't recall, had a Dreamcast. So yeah, it is a few factors. Hard to rank them, but timing is one element. The Saturn was a bit of a flop for them beforehand. PlayStation 2 was around the corner, which had better third-party support. The factor of the DVD player, never overlook that element of it. Dreamcast was a step in the right direction after the Saturn, but very much a case of too little, too late. I know Sega America and Sega Japan had major conflicting issues. I think it was Sega America wanted to push more to continue with hardware, but Sega Japan decided, no, we're going to switch to software focus, and which long-term seems to be probably the best course of action. Especially once 2001 rolled around, when you had GameCube, you had Xbox along with the PS2. Thanks for the question. Darkrod99. Hi, Boulder. Of all the horror games you have played so far, which one is the most you truly think its mechanics could be used more by the horror dev community? That being because it's innovating, because it's truly terrifying, etc. As always, keep up the great content. Greetings from Dominican Republic. Thank you, Darkrod99. So as Dreamcast is on my mind due to the prior question, the fact Terra's Realm was a Dreamcast exclusive, I'll say Illbleed. Many fronts. It's just so out there with how it's played, making use of the senses to find traps, its mechanics, the combat counters where you could escape with the helicopter. I'd love to see some indie developer take heavy influence from it, take a swing at it. Forbidden Siren series for its sight jacking. I know there's been indie titles that made use of it, but still very much a case of untapped potential. Same with the sanity system in Eternal Darkness, which Nintendo had a patent on for the longest time but did nothing with, but that patent has expired. There's so much that could be done with that system. So thanks for the question, Darkrod99. And Logan Lepin, Hobbit or Lord of the Rings? For both film and books, Lord of the Rings. Although I still enjoy Hobbit as a book. The films for The Hobbit, the less said the better. And on the topic of Lord of the Rings, the Silmarillion, or at least parts of it, can be quite a great read. Though some of it can also be, a bit of a dry read as well with all the names. But anyways, thank you for the questions, everyone. If you want to receive early access to videos, be featured in the credits, receive periodic updates and more, do consider joining on Patreon or YouTube memberships. Do be aware that YouTube memberships are more convenient, but YouTube does take a higher cut, so your support does not go as far. Or if not monthly, supporting the channel with a one-time donation through Ko-fi or a super thanks. Again, same case, Ko-fi takes a lesser cut compared to super thanks, but just to be aware of. I think it's convenience versus how much support for the support goes. But check the pinned comment in the description if you're interested. Thanks again, and I will see you the next video.